So, Alan, welcome to Navigate New York. Thanks so much for being a guest.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So good to finally sit down with you and chat. And I feel like there's so much to get through, and you've so many interesting parts of your life here, especially here in New York. But I think we'll start just by going a bit further back to a bit about your life in Ireland. So if you could start, if you wouldn't mind, just telling us a wee bit about your home life.
Yeah, home life I grew up in Dublin initially till I was 10 or 11. And people over the years would have associated me a lot playing with football with Cavan. So then they'd be like, wait, what's that accent? That's like there's a bit of Cavan in there, there's a bit of Dublin there. Yeah. So around 11, my parents moved us to Cavan to Balerborough. So there's the Cavan accent kicking in straight away. And so I grew up there, school, and kind of around that time of life, I'd always played soccer, and then I really fell in love with GA. Like, it really became like a big part of my life. And I always said to people, like, when I got to Cavan, like, you were looking around trying to figure it out, like, you're a kid trying to figure out like your place, like, you know, you want like friends, belonging. And in Cavan, it was basically you had two choices, like, you either were going to like football or tractors. That's how I felt it was. Yeah. So the football one was like such an easy fit for me, but I also just fell in love with Gaelic football. And so I grew up there playing with the club, started playing with Cavan, went to college in Dublin, DIT, was doing journalism. Actually, before I went to college, I did it backwards. I worked for a year in a local newspaper. That was like the tail end of the Celtic Tiger was still kicking, and I was like 16. I'd just done my leaving cert, worked straight for a newspaper as a journalist. Within a couple of months, a few different things had happened. I ended up like the sports editor of a newspaper, like while still a teenager. Wow. So it was a really cool experience, learned a lot, but like after kind of a year of that, I was like, oh, I want to like go to college and kind of have that formative experience. I also like wanted to get like an education and degree behind me. My family, like, we were working class, and, you know, everyone like worked in like good, honest work, but no one had ever done the college thing, and I kind of wanted to do it. So I kind of left my job to go to college to 4 years to come out and start a job that paid significantly less than the job that I'd left. Yeah. So yeah, and then kind of like say 20s before I got here, would have worked in Croke Park for a couple of years in the communications department, GA's communications department, worked for a not-for-profit charity, spun out .ie as their communications and fundraising manager. And then around that time I was still playing and I was having my own mental health troubles, and I'd done an article in the Sunday Independent, and then I decided I wanted to write a book. So my first time coming to America was to San Francisco in 2016. So I like quit my job, was like, I'm going to go out and try and write a book. And everyone would look at me like, that's a bit mental, like, best luck. But I did it. Like, I wrote 60,000 words in 3 months in San Francisco. And then I came home for 3 or 4 months and finished it, living back in Dublin. And then, yeah, after that, released the book, set up my business called Real Talks, started that like 2016, kind of been working at that since then. But then obviously we're talking today, life brought me back to America this way, and it was to New York because I burned myself out, was working too hard, and just got lost in everything, came here for a break. Ironically, people say, you come to New York for a break, that's normally the polar opposite of what people are doing, but I did. Came to play football, it was the Longford J Club, brought me over here, kind of helped me find my feet, somewhere to stay, kind of just recharge. Went home, and then I was like, oh, I kind of want to go back for multiple reasons. It was mainly work. So since 2018, I've kind of been here more than I haven't, and I'm here full time since 2020.
Yeah.
That's the long
I love that.
story.
No, well, thank you. It's a short version of a long story, and I appreciate it.
There's a book in it.
I love it. No, because I guess I'm so used to hearing, and some of our listeners, I'm sure, are so used to hearing you interview people through the Real Talks podcast and the Player's Voice podcast. And, you know, it's great to sort of hear your story. And there's so many parts. That's why I wanted to get you on as a guest, because I find your story, and the more I learn about you, there's so many layers, there's so many experiences that are just really interesting. And I think how open you are about so many parts of your life is really inspiring. And you obviously help a lot of people, both in, you know, in a sports environment and then in business environments with Real Talks and that sort of consulting. And I think it's super valuable. And I think your perspective as well, coming from Ireland to the US, is going to be interesting too. So I just want to take you back to the first book, your book. And I don't want to at all go over or like skim over the topic of it, because it's it obviously was the start of a really, really important journey for you, or at least the start of you kind of opening yourself up to the public knowing. So you can talk to me a wee bit about what you had been going through yourself and what led you to wanting to write a book about it.
Yeah, sometimes when you think of it now, it's like, in some ways you can remember certain moments and parts of it like it was yesterday, and then other times it's like, it feels like never mind a lifetime ago, it feels like 4 lifetimes ago, honestly. Like,
And by the way, the book's called The Best Is Yet to Come.
Yeah, The Best Is Yet to Come. It's still on Amazon and stuff like that. I published it in 2016, but the story goes back further, Sophie. Like, the story goes back to 2011. And so I'm a 20-year-old. I'm playing for Cavan under 21s. I'm playing with the seniors. We won an Ulster Championship. We were like the first Cavan team to win that in a long time. So it was just like this like huge elation. It was something that had been driving me for years of my life. Like, it was honestly like pretty much number one in my life in terms of what I cared about, what I like was my purpose and what I was working at. And kind of we got to an All-Ireland final against Galway, and like we lost that final, and really like probably the months after that, like I start like I hit a slope downwards, I call it, and multiple things happened. Obviously, bear in mind, I don't really understand any of this at the time. Like, I just feel, like football was just going better. But like my under 21 journey like came to an end, and that was like the group I'd grown up with. I was close with, real connection, real belonging, like a leadership role in that. And you kind of enter into a senior team where you're like, wait, where do I stand here? Am I a star or a sub? Kind of, do I have a voice here? Do I actually make an impact here? So that was the football side of it. And then also around the same time, like I came to the end of like a long-term relationship. Like a girl I'd been going out with since I was in school, you think like first love, and that's like, this is like it for the rest of our lives. And now and like that came to an end. Like, my grandfather had passed away, so that was like the first time real bereavement, loss had entered my life. Like, death had, like, I didn't really have an experience of it. Like, I was in a college course then where, like, as I touched upon earlier, I kind of worked for a year and been a journalist and kind of could be a journalist. I was a sports editor, and then I was kind of in this college course that was like, 9-10 hours a week, and it was there was no challenge for me. Like, I was I didn't go. Like, I'd go into stuff and be like, I don't need to go back into that. Like, that's not being like, I'm not saying that in a bosa way. It was almost like a sad way, because like I wasn't getting connection, I wasn't getting challenged, I wasn't like
motivated.
Like, I wasn't like engaged in the education process. And obviously different spells in my life since then, I've gone back and different things and had that completely different experience of like, I want to learn, I want to show up, like I want to I want to enhance myself. But just basically like that 6 months, say, from playing in Croke Park and All-Ireland final, like what is like meant to be like a high and like a real important day of your life. Like 6 months later, I was basically like gone from feeling that high to like where suicidal, I suppose the easiest way to say it is like suicidal thoughts had been banging around for a couple of months. Then suicide feelings start happening. So it's like, okay, this is a little deeper, and it's starting to like, it's in me. And then December 28, 2011 was when the first time where the feeling like almost came in action.
Right.
And that's like, it's a really like, I think within the book, there's 2 specific chapters. Funny enough, like two years in a row, so 2011, 2012, on December 28th, I almost had a suicidal like action a year apart.
Wow.
But that first one is like, basically that was me hitting my, like, I call it my rock bottom. And yeah, so even when I look back now, before I kind of come to the bouncing out of it, like just the amount of like warning signals I missed, the amount of key moments you miss, like say being out with the lads in a nightclub, locking myself in a bathroom because I need to cry, and like just hiding that from them, like, not leaving your bed for a couple of days. What else comes to mind? Like, disengaging from football, quitting, like just multiple things that were going on. I missed like so much. I call it a slide downwards, but I missed so many points of what I would regard now in terms of my work is, okay, like spot the signs, or like, keep an eye out for, never mind red flags, orange flags. So that day then, basically like I just had that moment where I was driving home and just mind's racing. You question everything, your worth, your self-esteem. Am I good enough? Why am I even here? What's my purpose? Do I belong here? Like, what's the point of my life? And I remember thinking, I could just swerve my car into the wall here. I'm driving 120 kilometers an hour. I could just swerve into the wall. Job done, out of here. I had like one of the most profound moments of my life where like I imagined like my brain, because it was like obviously unwell, like conjured up like my funeral. Like I saw the scene, I saw my friends and family like standing around my coffin like crying, and then it was in my I'd still, even, it's such a weird thing to recall, but I remember it so vividly still. And I remember thinking, I was going to curse, but like fuck, I did.
Curse away.
I was just get home, and like I did, and like from that moment, like I got home and kind of wasn't myself, obviously completely like within my shell, hood up, like I still remember what I was wearing. I was wearing my college cotton bottoms. That was the time in life where like the baggy cotton bottoms are cool. So it was a cotton one of those. I was wearing a yellow Abercrombie and Fitch hoodie with the pulled up. Like, it was a real cliche. I remember, like, just my parents were like, what's wrong? What's the story? Like, you don't talk. And then my mom was like, like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Like, are you feeling depressed? And you remember, you go, oh, like, how do I lie? How do I get out of this conversation? Like, how am I going to, like, get out of this? And I remember just thinking, oh, like, can't get any worse. Just say, from that moment, like, obviously parents were affirming, get to basically help me, like, get to, like, to help, like, professional help. So I reached out to the Gaelic Players Association, and funny enough, like, they'd emailed us like a week ago, like, all players got an email being like, if you're in trouble over Christmas, like, here's a number. I remember typing out the number and being like, nah, I'm good. But, like, I wasn't.
Right.
And then that was really kind of the start of, I suppose, my recovery through, and you can ask after, like, many setbacks, many up and downs, but that was okay. Like, I hit my rock bottom. Let's try and, like, rebound here. Let's try and put the pieces of this back together. And your original question was kind of around what brought you to the book. So, like, okay, as a 21-year-old, I'm experiencing that. So that's my business. That's, like, my life. I'm trying to put it together. Then it gets to a point where, like, okay, I'm kind of better. I'm back living. And then you feel like you're living with, like, a secret, a monkey on your back, like, dirty secret. So maybe some of your friends know, maybe some of them don't. Maybe some of your family know, some of them don't. And in 2013, definitely had packaged myself back up enough to, like, I would like to live again. Like, I was like, okay, things are going all right. Like, I was back playing football with Cavan. I was playing senior inter-county football. And again, that kind of took over my life, and it broke my arm. So then it kind of, like, all the sellotape, everything that was sellotaped together kind of fell apart again. And the couple of days after that, depression hit me really hard. Like, it was really dark, windows, like, curtains closed in the bed. And I started writing. About what I was feeling. I started writing about what I'd gone through. And just a couple of thousand words, like a brain dump, all in, like, a couple of hours. And I was like, I didn't look at it again for a while. And then a couple of weeks later, I was like, I remember writing that. I was like, I think that was pretty good. Like, I went back and read it again, and I was like, oh crap, like, it is good. And it's like, also, like, this would help people, because when I went back to reread it, like, it helped me. Like, I was reading my own stuff. And then I was based on that time, I was like, right, I'm going to do an article. I'm going to, like, write an article about it. And so that ultimately, like, long story short, that became an article in the Sunday Independent in 2013. So I was still playing, like, 20, like, again, I think of it now, I nearly laugh, like, I was a 22-year-old kid, like, and that blew up, like, that just blew up. Like, it was on Saturday night talk shows, morning talk shows, radio, TV, newspapers, and it brought, like, a profile that my playing pedigree certainly wasn't worthy of. But then it just kind of started me off down this path of being able to help, being able to be someone who shares their story, shares, like, I suppose, well-being advice. But over the years, then it's grown, obviously, I know, in terms of me upskilling myself into, like, mental skills, performance psychology, like, actually mixing the story with helpful, proactive information support services. Or it's at the point where I do, like, a 60-minute keynote kind of well-being, and call it guest speaker, a masterclass, a workshop, whatever you want. But, like, I've done that, like, hundreds of times in this, like, to thousands of people in Ireland and around the world, and I love doing it. So that was the article. And when I did the article, sorry, I know I'm taking this is the longest answer I've ever gotten the podcast, but when I did the article, I was in work one day, and I was just working away like a normal person. And I got an email asking me if I'd be interested in the book deal. Right. And I was like, thought it was like a prank. But I said no, like, because it was like, well, I've been writing a book about, like, I'm 22, just wrote an article. Like, I think the article was maybe 4,000 words. Yeah. And I was like, sure, like, there's not, like, I wouldn't have been ready, and I wasn't ready. Yeah. But then a couple of years later, kind of as time goes on, the lessons keep happening, you keep learning, because the journey never ends. I know I was talking about it earlier this morning, like, your mental health, your well-being, like, I'm still learning. I learned something this morning before I, like, left my apartment about my own well-being. Yeah. Like, and then it just kind of, okay, so that knowledge starts building up, and then this urge to kind of start writing more, and okay, you could help in a bigger way and do this body of work. Yeah. And then, I just was like, I'm going to try and do it. Like, wow. So, like, but ultimately I quit my job and went to San Francisco and just start writing, like, and amazing. That was how the book came around. And to be, like, even full circle, I didn't tell anyone. I told a couple people I was going to write a book, but, like, I didn't, like, make a big hoo-ha about it. I also didn't approach a publisher about it until, like, I kind of felt I had the book written. Yeah. And the publisher that emailed me that first day is the person that Hachette, they're the ones that published the book. It was, wow. So it's pretty yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience, but that's kind of in terms of life, but actually the stages of the journey, and there's multiple parts of it you can jump back in and feel free to. But yeah, that's how it came about.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for being so like open about the whole experience. And I imagine you need to just take like a big breath after, getting that all out again, because I'm sure, you can feel the emotion, as expected, of going back to them times of actually reliving how you were feeling. And I just think it's so interesting and inspiring to hear how you've really used that experience. And like, it's amazing that you're also a journalist at the time, to like, as a method of healing almost, to like get it all on paper. And then, you wrote this article and you started to see the impact it had. Because I mean, without putting years or dates or anything on like the conversation around mental health in Ireland, I think, over the last decade, it's just really catapulted in terms of, and it's down to people like you and, many other people who are brave enough to speak out about it, that it's become, such a less taboo sort of subject. And I think when I think back to when you're experiencing these emotions, like around, 2010, 2012 years,
Yeah.
like, I know even myself, that was a time in Ireland where there was still silence around it, and there was a little bit of shame around, not necessarily shame, but people just didn't know how to approach it. And I think we're all still learning,
Yeah, it didn't have the language, and especially like, again, I think like there's a story I can tell that always like captures this like perfectly, is like, so around that time, like just to exactly the point you're making, I was like a 20-year-old kid. I'm living in Dublin, so again, I'm living in Dublin with friends that I went to school with. We're all in different jobs. Some lads are in DCU, some are in St. Pat, some are in DIT. Like, we're just all in Dublin, like having the crack, honestly. Like, meant to be in college, but
never there.
No, like some of them were, in fairness. Like, I was on the other end of it, but so after I get through the first wave of therapy, and after I get through the first wave of, okay, like I think something bad has happened, or like, I suppose not, but something bad has happened, because it was just, okay, so I found myself in a low place. That's probably a better way of saying it. Okay. So then, like, I'm going to try and start, I call it like climbing back out of like the hole that you're in. So you kind of get back up to like ground level. I'm like, okay, like I'm back, I'm in work. There's good days and bad days. Yeah. Like, genuinely, like, I'm not being smart. There was times I worked in Crow Park. I used to get up off my desk and I would need to leave the desk, and like I'd go sit in like the corporate boxes that looked out onto the pitch. And some days at work I'd just be sitting there, and you'd be like, oh, like you could just like not go back into the office, or you could just do certain things that would mean that you wouldn't have to be there anymore. And you're just kind of getting used to even being comfortable with, when I was really like unwell, like that relationship between the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions. Because like the feelings happen all the time. Like certainly they did back then. They still happen every now and again. You get when you're like, oh, that's a bit weird. Where's that coming from? Like, what's causing that? Or did something weird happen yesterday that I didn't actually think about?
Yeah.
So it's still really ropey up and down, but I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to start like just open up a little bit to, the couple of lads I'm living with, just start like that process of owning it and being authentic. And I remember chatting to one of my mates, like one of my best friends still is, like, and he's like, can I talk to you like in the kitchen for a minute? And he's like, yeah, like, I think they were playing FIFA in like the sitting room. I can still see the state of the room, like plates with ketchup stains that's gone hard. You need a hammer and chisel to get it off the plates.
University houses.
But just like that was what it was, just like, it was just like young, like I suppose boys become men, but like we're having a crack, like. So like, can I talk to you in the kitchen for a minute? So I wasn't doing like the stand up. I'm going to like, like like I've announced it. So I was like, I'll pick them off one by one. He came out and was chatting to him, and he was like, so what's up? And I was like, I have something I want to say to you. And he was like, yeah, so like, go on, like what? Hurry up. Like, I think he might have like won the game in FIFA, so he was like on next again or something stupid. And I said, yeah, so look, I've been like kind of like dealing with depression the last while, and I've been like going to counselling. And this room just deadpan silent, like not a sound. And I'm standing there and your brain starts racing, like all the thoughts go through your head, like everything. Like, okay, so like, shouldn't have said that. This fella's not going to be my friend anymore. He's gone off Facebook. He's gone off Twitter. Like, we're just like, that's the end of it. Like, your brain just panics.
Yeah.
And then he's like, huh. And then he just said something like, I never forget. Like, it still sticks with me. Like, even in terms of my work, my life, like Real Talks is a huge pillar of who I am. Like my philosophy on life, but also just practically my business and my work of having like meaningful conversations. And he just said, oh, I went to that for a while last year too. So I'm like, huh? And he's like, yeah. And he, again, picture like two bumbling 20-year-olds with the emotional like vocabulary of like a couple of levels up from like, we're at the early part of our journey, put it that way.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. I was like, are you joking? He was like, no. And like, I like, honestly, like, I like, whatever human reaction happened to me, like, I like laughed. Because it's awkward. Like, it's like, I like laughed. And he was like, looking at me, but like, basically like, what are you laughing at?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, sorry, I'm not laughing at. But I was like, because basically, like, and this is like what I'm getting at is like how stupid it is that you've got these two best friends. They're living together under one roof. They're spending every day with each other.
Yeah.
They are both in different, like in the one universe, sneaking out the door, saying they're going somewhere they're not, to go off to counselling, to like obviously deal with whatever each of us were going through, different things, to then like come back and lie about where you've been, to then wear the mask and hide what you're like actually experiencing. And you think back of like how helpful like we could have been for each other.
Yeah.
So that's, and it's crazy like of that. So that was always like what I always remember. But then there's an extra layer to it, because about a month or two before my like feelings almost became the action, I remember him coming into a room one day and being like, are you all right, buddy? And I was like, yeah, I'm grand. Why? And he's like, well, like, are you getting up? Like, I hadn't been up. Like, I basically hadn't left. I lived in, like, the converted attic of the house. They call it the back cave. Like,
yeah.
And I remember, I can still see him, like, there's a single bed, like, a wood panel roof, and I'm looking at me being like, basically, like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm grand. Like, and I lied and I fobbed him off. And he was trying, like, and to be fair to him, like, he was trying. And I was just not there yet. And that was him trying. And now I say, like, when I hit my rock bottom, that moment happened about 3/4 of the way down. So there was an opportunity there to just ease off the curve and the slip, and I didn't take it. And it just as you kind of, that was just one of those profound moments of like in life and in a relationship where you go, oh, like it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay. And it's like, again, just because you talk about like being open and being honest, like, and it starts with small little ones like that, like, and just like in safe spaces and getting like, you don't have to get a big inspiring response. Also, the persons have to give a solution. It was just like listening, and if you have actually some common ground, it's like, oh, I didn't. It was just such a, even like it's one of the best moments I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
like,
that's so nice. It's so powerful to hear, like, even just two young lads kind of having a check in with each other, very like at the end of when it could have been done a lot sooner. I mean, it's funny, but it's also, it shows the power of friendship. And I think, you know, if we look at like just even, I feel like I could just listen to you all day and like keep, you know, I want to talk all about Real Talks and how that's evolved. But going back to from this experience, you know, essentially it's good to get to kind of the root of what then created so much sort of fullness and richness in your own life. But like you and I were just chatting there, and I thought it was so interesting that like we talk about, you know, times in our lives when we were at that low point, that not everyone, you know, goes through depression, and there's different versions and there's different intensities almost. But I thought it was interesting when we were chatting about like how you don't just get cured from depression, or you don't just get cured from addiction, or you don't, you know, there's certainly, as you sort of talked about it there, like the red flags or the signs, but it's a constant sort of life change. It's sort of like these habits that you have to start bringing into your everyday that will make sure, or try to prepare you not to try to help you avoid getting back to that lowest point. And I think, like, you know, friendship is a really important one, like connecting with people. And I guess when we sort of take that to, if we've sort of fast forward a bit to where we both are now, like living in New York, a city of over 8 million people, you know, you have clients and teams and businesses here that you work with. Is that something you feel, even for yourself personally, is that something that you feel it's a bit harder to find that connection in a city like New York as opposed to Ireland? Or is it all sort of, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, I guess?
I mean, it's a good question. I don't necessarily think it's harder to find. It is hard to find. Anyway, it can be found.
Yeah.
I think how we as people in society work is we often associate the strength of our friendship with the longevity of time we know the person, rather than maybe the lined up values / like quality of the conversation, the shared experience. So if it can be you might have to just tailor a little bit kind of in terms of how you view it.
Yeah.
Do I miss like the lads I grew up with? Like I'm still in the WhatsApp group. Like the group's called the lads. You know what I mean, or whatever. It changes names every now and again depending on what the joke of the day is. But that's ultimately like what it is. So you still have that, and you still feel connected to that group. And again, like one of those was just visiting in New York last week, and that's what. In terms of like the New York side of it, it's one of the things I love, and I think it's one of the most special things about this city is I get to live in a place where people choose to come and visit. Yeah. So like if I lived in Texas, or if I lived in Toronto, or if I lived in Paris or whatever, the boys probably aren't coming to visit for their own reasons. Like just I'll come visit you, that's different. Yeah. But like say in the last 6 months, 3 of that group of maybe 9 people have just come on trips here, not to see me because they're coming with their partner or they're coming for work. They're just here, which is like a really cool thing. So you get that, and that's like a top up of relationships you have. Yeah, and then like come back to New York. It's definitely challenging. Like, do I have a group of friends here the way I would growing up? No, but like life changes. Like like you've a partner. You have people who you obviously meet through like work. Like obviously I'm involved like from a coaching perspective, both in like multiple sports, but also then like I engage with the GA scene, with the club teams over the last couple of years, where you're getting that kind of connection. You got the people from home. Someone's walking in, you hear this like accent that you haven't heard in 5 years, and be like, I know where you're from, before even like tells you where he's from. So and then like for me, even at the moment in life, like where I'm at, like very fortunate to have been like given the opportunity to manage the New York team, and it's such like an elevated experience of like lads have come from Ireland, have all come from for various different reasons, but also like a chunk of our lads are like second generation now, or even like they could be third, like just born and bred here, and then watching kind of a pastime, an amateur sport, a sport I grew up loving, being the glue that's bringing these people together, and then being able to try and facilitate the environment and create that environment and the culture where people choose to want to be part of it. Like it's really nice. And like so I always feel like the GA in New York's a bit of a cheat code to your question. If I just arrived from a town from Cavan and kind of got plugged into a few people, my answer might be different. But I do feel like the GA is a little bit of a cheat code in that, because you get so much connection and you just have a shared experience, pastime, hobby. It's just something that gets the first layer, and hey, like 90% of those people mightn't become friends, but you have like a connection, and then 3, 4 of them be like, actually, do you want to grab coffee, and you want to like where are you at this weekend? That stuff then happens too, if that answers your question.
100%. Yeah, no, it does answer the question. I think it's I feel like so lucky that we in New York have such a strong Irish community here, especially compared to other cities in the US. I think New York is definitely the leader in terms of like the Irish. I know Boston and Chicago and everything have great Irish communities, but they're much smaller. Here, Ireland is visible everywhere in the city. But when you get like, I guess I like to always sort of ask my guests about that connection piece, because it's very easy. And for me, like, I've been here for 10 years. There was certainly a good period where I stayed disconnected. Where maybe I was playing football, or maybe here it's not as long a season as it is at home, but maybe it was kind of there, not there. But on the off season, I would really unplug from like that really supportive group of people that I'd met. And it's interesting that you mentioned as well that like there's certain flags at times where you can tell when somebody is maybe sliding down. And I think New York can be such a challenging place because it requires so much of your energy, and it's important for me now on this side of things to like take time alone and not overexpend my energy meeting everyone all the time like I used to at times. And so it's easy to kind of, what worries me sometimes about like New York and what can be a bit overwhelming, when you think about Irish people that aren't plugged into the community, is that they essentially are anonymous, and things in New York can find, whereas at home, at least, you had your mum saying like, are you okay? You had your friend, so, I think it's great that what you do with Real Talks and through your podcasts and through all the stuff that you share, with wellbeing, it's like tools to not just like for yourself, but to be sort of aware of other people who might sort of be struggling. I would love now to chat a little bit about Real Talks and how the pillars of, I guess, your life experiences have defined the service itself. So can you talk to us a little about what Real Talks is and what it provides?
Yeah. Real Talks is like genuinely like at its core, like it's who I am. That's for like first and foremost. And like just like practically that started as a business in, I think that's probably the tail end of 2016, then definitely like I think, you know, officially 2017. But as of right now, like there's 3 key services, there's 3 things that I do, like to start there. So like one is like obviously doing keynote speeches on like well-being, where I can come into a company or I come into a classroom and like, okay, we just want to touch base, well-being, share a story, some shared learnings. Also, it's okay to have a laugh during that conversation and look back at things and actually like literally like those conversations can be humor, they can have like insight, they can be fun. I think, you know, going back to even days in school, someone would come and be like, okay, so we're here to talk to you about mental health and well-being, and you just kind of sit there and you're like, I can't wait for it till it's over.
Yeah.
But then there's the upskilling part, and I can loop back to the skills part like in a couple of minutes. But there's 3 things that would drive home in that session, and one is self-awareness. So like that's like self-awareness at the center of everything, all of us. Like, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, and how does that make me act? So like when you start actually trying to think about that little triangle, you'd be surprised how quickly, if you start tracking it back or sitting down in the day and map out that little triangle and do the exercise, good chunk of the time the actions we take mightn't be great. Like as we try and develop that self-awareness of, okay, so this person said that to me, what did that make me think of, how did that make me feel, what did I do? So that's just a tiny example of it, but basically creating awareness of self-awareness. Yeah. And that's the start of it. And then when it comes to like, okay, so that action, you know, what can that be? What can that do? The next 2 skills are kind of related to the action piece, where we talk about resilience. And that's, again, people will be like, oh, resilience, like, you know, be stronger, like go for a run. But it's like, no, well, resilience to me is how you respond to adversity when it presents itself. And I use a simple metric of, okay, you're all right or well-being out of 10. So let's say today I woke up feeling pretty good, I'm 7 or whatever, you know. But like, okay, but if stuff happens where I slide to a 6 and to a 5, do I have enough self-awareness to catch that? Like, so within 2 shifts of a scale, do I have enough self-awareness to go, wait, I'm sliding down. What can I do to like either A, just stop the slide, or B, can I push back 1? And when I was younger, just through lack of self-awareness, I basically would think, if I wasn't 9 or 10, like things were crap. And it'd be like, you know, like it's not the case. Yeah. We're all moving all the time. All right, like that number's moving all the time. So resilience, and kind of softening up the resilience, helping people widen their perspective of, well, what are the things I can do that are helpful to me? Like what's an action I can take that's helpful to me today or tomorrow? Or, you know, in some situations, absolutely, is it going to talk therapy? Is it going to professional service, checking in? But also it is some of, actually, you know, I'm just going to like just check out here, go for a walk, or the smaller things. I'm going to text a friend or whatever. But then the third one that's often kind of, people, I'll put it this way, a lot of people would reach out to me and say, I want you to talk about well-being and resilience. Not a lot of people reach out to me and say, would you come in and talk about self-compassion? Yeah. And so that's the third one. That's probably the one I struggle with the most. It's one that, particularly as a young athlete, you're very hard on yourself. You're only as good as your last game, blibbity blobbity bloob. But like actually developing that, well, how do you do that? What does that look like? And like self-compassion is basically like the art of being kind or non-judgmental to yourself when you're like experiencing hardship, adversity, failure. And think about it, we've all done this. Like something bad happens and you'd say, I'm such an idiot. Yeah. But if that replays 1,000 times or 100,000 times, that's really built in. So actually breaking that down of, okay, like that's okay, like that happened. Yeah. So what would I do if I did it again? Also, the next time it happens, how would I respond differently? And also it's like, I think I was saying to you earlier, like people are like, oh, resilience, get going, get me. Sometimes it's okay, just take a day. And actually I was going to say it in terms of what you said, Sophie, was like, you know, burning yourself out energy-wise, surrounding yourself with people that are plugging in. Part of like the self-awareness piece and part of like the authenticity piece is getting yourself to a point where you're comfortable being your own, and it be like a recharging being on your own, not a despair, which is what I used to do. So I used to also do what you do, but like, who's around tonight? Who can come for a drink? Or who's coming out? Or who's going to the movies? Like, just what can we do that I'm not sitting here with, go back to my triangle, my thoughts, my feelings. Yeah. So that's kind of like the well-being side. So that's the one I've done that. Like, I still love doing it. I've had some of the most powerful, emotional, like memorable moments of my life have happened during 60-minute sessions like that, where teenage kids have opened up about stuff, grown men have opened up about stuff within their bubble environment. And someone opening up in an environment like that is 10 times more powerful than me coming and talking, because they're the person that's still there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And so it's just creating that space for a real talk, for whether if it's through me, absolutely that's going to be impactful. But also, you can never track, you know, two people might have a chat at the water cooler after I leave, or the next day, and just kind of just nudging that forward.
Yeah.
So that's one. The second one will be around, like, my work at Real Talks is mental performance coaching. So that's mainly, I do that with sports teams. Like, that's my passion, my love, in terms of building out groups of athletes to be more comfortable talking to each other, communicating, definitely upskilling the individual from a performance point of view, but also building the connection and the trust from a team point of view.
Yeah.
And I like that work fires me up. Like, I love that stuff. Like, there was something happened recently where I was with like an NCAA college, and like, obviously without getting into the who and the whatever, but like, just to work in a space where during a workshop, like, I had to stop because I got goosebumps the whole way up my two arms because of what a 20-something-year-old kid is talking about.
Wow.
And you talk about, like, growing up, people trying to be like, vulnerability, not a chance. Like, vulnerability, if I was in a dressing room with someone said vulnerability at 20, like at 18, 19, you've hit the back of the pile, pal. Like, you're not going to help us get this done.
Yeah.
But vulnerability, like, just so within that program, we'd do workshops, we'd do, like, you know, pre-training, post-training conversations around basically well-being, leadership, mental toughness, and then obviously high performance, because that's what we're all striving for. And then the connection piece as well, you mentioned it, from, say, even an individual coming to New York. Like, connection is a word we use, same as resilience. That's kind of like big concept. It's up there. It's like a word in the clouds.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, what is it? Like, but then more importantly, like, how do we build it?
Yeah.
And no one ever tells you how to do that. Someone will say to you, you're very good at connecting people, or you're very good at, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then you actually go, okay, well, what is it about you that does that?
Yeah.
The simple things you can say, like, say I'm with a head coach, for example, is the easiest example to give. So a head coach is, you know, has anything from up to 10, could have 10 staff. Honestly, you could have more. Then he's got like anything from 20 to 50 players, depending on the sport. You know, it's like, that's a lot of people to be trying to build connection with. But then, so okay, but then how are you going to do it? Most obvious time, particularly say in the GA world, is you only get the lads or the players pre-session, post-session. So how are you going to do it there? And there's little models and like, it's all research, it's all out there, and just always taking those big things down into like the simple things. So for example, if you're a coach walking around, or if you're a boss in an office and you're like, I'd really like to like connect with my employees more, get to know them better. Morning, Sophie, how are you? And you'd be like, oh yeah, all's good, great. And like, you walk on.
Yeah.
But then how do you get to the next one? What's your follow-up thing? So what's the layer 2 question, or what's the layer 2 action you're going to take? And there's just simple things like, for example, just asking them a question and stopping to listen. Like, just shut your mouth, like, ask a question, shut your mouth, stand there and say, that's interesting, thanks for sharing that with me. And then you can walk away and that person goes, oh, they asked, they listened.
Wow.
There's a small piece of connection that's happened. Now, connection, we all want to stand up on the podium and say, Alan, come in and talk about connection for 60 minutes. But actual connection is that. It can also be around finding common ground. Where are you from? Okay, cool. Do you know this person? Yeah. Oh, great. I know that person too. There's like a thing. Straight away you go, okay, so there's something more that's now connecting us.
Yeah.
Finding common ground can be multiple, like that can be anything. You like a movie, you've had a well-being experience, like just anything of like, oh, that's
pop
great.
culture, yeah.
And you go, cool. So the next time you see them, you're like, there's the person that.
Yeah.
Like there's multiple ways of they're just say there's 2 small examples. So actually, practically as a mental skill, actually, or as a leader or as a person, how do I build connection?
Yeah.
Is that. So that's stuff in the sports, like I just love that. And then the third thing, just to kind of answer your question, is just, yes, so Real Talks podcast for me is something that I started back in 2017 before podcasts were cool.
Yeah.
And that was me just like I had a recording equipment in a backpack and drove around Ireland, particularly GA players, just talking about addiction, mental health, bereavement, psychology, mindset, leadership. And I was like, I just loved that. And I did 2 seasons of that. And the thing was like, listened to all over the world. I remember like waking up one morning, it was on like top of like the iTunes charts ahead of like Second Captains Off the Ball. And I was like it was me. It was just like me, the guest, and like 2 lads kind of helping me, Joe, as like a favor to like do it. And it was really cool.
Brilliant.
It's something that I've dipped in and out of over the years. Like last year I did another mini series with Rory Stories, Leanne Kiernan, who's a professional soccer player with Ireland and Liverpool, and David Balfe, who goes by For Those I Love, who would have had the Irish Album of the Year, I think maybe 2 years ago. So that was more closely linked to like mental health. And that kind of just got me like, okay, I want to do that again. So like basically later, just so anyone listening, like later this year in March, like I'll be relaunching that and expanding that. There's going to be like a weekly podcast. We're going to have stuff coming out much more like holistically from people, music, art, business, sport, walk of life in New York, in Ireland, further afield. So that's kind of, that's like a passion project of mine. So there's like, that's like the three, in terms of real talks, like that's the three things. And like, I love them all. And then one of the things I'm learning about as I get older is like, I've done them all individually at times really successfully, but like burned myself out by not looking after myself appropriately. And it's okay. I just had that kind of period before Christmas and over Christmas, and chatting with my partner, Mary Kate, just be like, okay, like how do we do this? Like, and as I head into like 2024, there's like definitely two words that are like very to the fore. One is like sustainability, but then two is just having fun. Like just fun. I want it to be fun. Yeah. And that's it. Like that's definitely like that's the overview. Yeah. Of the work, and it's like I said, my work has taken me to so many different places, to meet so many different people. I've also over the years like got dragged away from it at its core, and not in a bad way, because like say a charity wants help with this, or a whatever, like a company wants help with that, or so you're a consultant. It's like it's good work and you're doing it because you like you like doing it, but just kind of wanting to bring it all back to like me, and like just in terms of like me, my life is here now very much. Like I'm like engaged, I'm getting married later this year back in Ireland, but like my life is here now, and it will be for the foreseeable future. So kind of just like wanting to expand and kind of almost like I've built my business successfully in Ireland. I've come here, I've done different things over the years, and I'm kind of ready to kind of do it again here. So it's like Real Talks 2.0 almost. Love it. I'm really excited by it. Like, and this is such a great place, as you know, and part of the reason like all the caliber of people you have on here, like New York is a great place. Yeah. Like, and like I love living here. This is like genuinely from a well-being perspective. Like I've found a place where I feel at home. I feel like it energizes me, but also I can find the pocket of space when I want a quiet day. And you can basically in New York, you can just like whatever the vibe you're feeling, like you can get it if you want. Yeah. But also like it's like anywhere, and sometimes just like close your apartment door and it's like, well, this is my home and this is my partner, and like I'm gonna watch telly. Like
it's so true. So true. Alan, what a brilliant answer. You've touched on so many important points, and I love the way Real Talks is a holistic representation of everything that you're trying to put out into the world, and it looks at all of the different parts of it, because you know, you and I get a lot from any conversation I have from you, because I suppose we can relate on so many things in terms of like we're both, you know, whatever you want to call it, self-employed, self-owned entrepreneurs, whatever the title is.
Some of my friends would call that bluffers.
But you know, it's really, really, we'll be laughing one day, Alan. But it's really refreshing, I find, to talk to someone like you, because we have so many shared experiences and all those things, you know, that you were saying there about like showing resilience and self-awareness. And I think in order to, no matter what it is in your life, no matter if it's in sport or if it's in your own work or if it's in, you know, friendships or relationships, self-awareness is something that I agree is just so important. And if you're hoping to sort of pivot things, no matter what it is, in what degree of your life, you know, having that self-awareness and resilience is so important, because it's scary to take a risk. It's scary to ask for help. It's scary to admit that you're unhappy. It's scary to say this friendship's not working for me anymore. It's scary to say I want more for myself. And I think often as Irish people, we can be a little bit like restrained in really kind of stepping into our power and our identity. And I don't like to say that in a general way. I think it's just maybe more like, it's from my experience anyway, as a kind of extrovert person, it was only really when I got to New York that I felt like I could be a bit more expressive in terms of like what I wanted to achieve. And, you know, I've super supportive family at home, but I think you can't but feel it. Anyone who even visits New York, the minute your foot hits the pavement, you're like, okay, I'm here, like anything's possible. So it's interesting to me as well. I was beforehand, when I wanted to think about the million questions I have for you, it's like, how has your work transferred and to the US, and to particularly in the sporting environments you find yourself in, you know, working more often with American teams and that kind of when we think about Ireland and how we would think of American sports, it's so much more glamorous, and it's so much more kind of almost like there's a positivity to it that I think, you know, in Ireland only, not that we don't have that, we do in many ways, and sport is such a big part of our lives, but it seems like such a different culture here. How have you adjusted to that?
I mean, yeah, like the culture is definitely different, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to come here.
Yeah.
Like, so there's differences, but then also, like, I'd say there's also lots of things that are just the same because we're all people.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, from an Irish perspective, we're quite lucky. So say we come from it, even with sports, our sports are quite tribal. So
yeah,
I'm from Baleborough, so all the people from Baleborough get together, put on jerseys, and go play against all the people from the other town over. Yeah. So that's quite tribal just by nature.
Yeah.
And then also, okay, so I'm looking if I play against Cavan, I play for Cavan. All the lads, we put on our jerseys, we're driving up and down. All them lads put on their jerseys. So again, it's quite tribal. There's clear borders. I'm from here, you're from there. We're here to beat you.
Yeah.
In America, it's quite different because, like, say at college level, kids are coming from all over the place, and they don't have, like, it's location is not the thing that's actually binding them. Like, they're definitely, it's the thing that has them all there, but what's going to connect them and bond them would probably be a little different.
Yeah.
But that's also quite fun because you can have more fun with that too. Of like, okay, so you're from, for example, if I'm with a team, you're from South Korea, you're from Spain, you're from Texas, you're from California. So why are we all here? Why are you here? Why are you here? So then they're shared, and okay, so you can bring it together in a different way. There's definitely more opportunity here from a sports perspective, obviously, like in terms of resources.
Yeah. Like
NCAA, there's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, professional. You go professional sports, within you got an arena across the road that there's professional basketball, professional ice hockey. You don't have to go too far. There's professional football. Like there's even in both of those professional sports, then there's like male and female. So just the quantity of teams just gets like, there's just way more opportunity. But then it's still just about, it still all comes back to people though, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just about, for me, I think when you're starting out, you think just, you just got like, you just want some work. So like wherever you can get in, you get in. But then as you get older, it's like, well, no, I want to find the people who are like-minded, who I'm going to connect with.
Yeah.
And like, where am I going to be able to make the most impact? And like, so if I'm in a support role, like that's so dependent on the head coach. Like you learn this lesson the hard way if you're trying to promote, say, whatever, communication, connection, vulnerability or whatever, but then the head coach is going in just ripping the heads off lads. There's a disconnect there between, well, what's actually happening. So in that situation, the head coach relationship is really important. We've been quite lucky with that, in fairness. But like, I think just there's big opportunity here, and that's what I think draws a lot of people, particularly from Ireland here to New York. And it was something I was going to say to you earlier, actually, now that kind of it's interlinked, but maybe a little different. But one is, a lot of us that come here, it is for opportunity, it's for a change of scenery, right? It's for maybe something, maybe something has happened at home that could be a relationship breakup, you lost your job or you quit your job. So it's like, but one thing I was going to say, because it ties back into like the self-awareness piece you were talking about just before I jumped into that, was that like, one of the reasons why self-awareness is so important is that like loads of us end up in situations where like we're not happy and we want change. But it would scare you when times people make change without really like thinking about it in terms of like, okay, I want to make change, but what do I want out of the change? Like if this, so my work situation, just like say, here's a simple example. My work situation is crap, right? Like my boss is an ass, like the company sucks, like whatever. And I want to change. You'd be surprised how many people quit that job and then take up a job in basically the exact same company doing the exact same thing, who have the exact same values. And it's like, like we need jobs, we need income, but just like, so actually just trying to be a little more aware of when you're making a change, why and what are you looking for? It's like, and it's kind of really hard to do that without the self-awareness piece. Like that's again, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what am I going to do about it? And that's one part of New York here. And the other thing I was going to say actually with New York specifically, as I've found over the years, I'm sure you have, a lot of the time people move here because they're trying to escape something, like something emotional, something situational, if it's like career, whatever it is. And to be fair to this, like this city's wonderful, but there's also a certain time, or for certain people, this is the worst place in the world to be. Because for any of your tendencies, if for escapism, if that's alcohol, if that's drugs, if that's whatever it is, put it this way, if I'm in Bailborough and I'm still drinking at 2:00 on a Wednesday in the morning, people are going to know.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to come up very quickly. What's the story there?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm here,
Yeah.
you mentioned the word anonymous earlier,
Yeah.
I think you're off the grid.
Yeah.
Like, you're off the grid. Like,
Yeah.
no. And even if you are going back to a recurring bar, if that's your vice and that's what it is, and that bartender starts like getting a bit too close, there's not a bar on the corner. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, so there's that kind of, just in terms of when people, because I say people that listen to this who are moving here, or thinking about moving here, or do move here, just something to keep in mind in terms of, like, and it's okay to move for change, for escapism. I've certainly done it. But just when you do, like, just sometimes just changing the place, a lot of the stuff mightn't be in the suitcase, but it's not too far. It's with the suitcase, like. And then when you are here, I would say just from the jump, like anyone that does move here, there's a lot of like scare or like, and genuine like complications around health insurance, cost of therapy, accessibility. I definitely would just mention like Solace House in terms of just that's out in like Queens that are available, that do support. And that's one of the things in my work is like, I am not a therapist. Like, I don't sit down and do hour-long sessions with people, but I'm very good at being like, okay, thanks for sharing that with me. Now you're going to go here. Like but sorry, you have the choice of going here. That's what I'd recommend. If you want to do it, that's great. Again, say with the collegiate level, very lucky infrastructure in colleges, like on-site support, they have it. But just to give, like, say, and Solace House is one, but just because there's a lot of fear of, like, I can't afford that, or the cost of that, which is all valid, by the way. Yeah. But also there's just, and same with, I know listening to this in Ireland, it's like, people are like, oh yeah, but I went to the doctor and I got referred and the HSE waiting list is like 6 months, which is that okay? No, absolutely. Like, it's disgraceful. But like, there's other options, and if you just get to like follow up question or you ask someone else, there's other people around that can help, and it's just, that's like, you talk about the education piece and well-being, and it's kind of like one of my, as you can tell, like, gets me fired up. But all the awareness raising stuff, great. I was at the forefront of that for sure. There's still a lot of it going on. It's all great. It's all important. But it's really now about services. Like, so services is one thing, and then you would, this would be a whole separate podcast, you would have to question the society that we live in, the world we live in, why so many people are being weighed down or struggling and like, never mind like barely surviving or just like grinding. And there's a lot of people doing that right now, and we won't get into that today, but just to acknowledge that, like, there's a lot of people struggling, and like, so which is tough. It is, and I'm appreciate you saying that, because I know sometimes whenever, like, personally, when I feel like, you know, I'm quite happy in life or things are going well, even though, you know, in general there might be some things that aren't going particularly well, like because of changes I made like 4 years ago with quitting alcohol. You know, you and I talked at length about addiction earlier, and that recovery process, and, you know, bringing more self-awareness, thank God, into my life to be able to monitor and like talk to my therapist regularly and talk to friends and put into place all those things. But if I hadn't sort of hit a very low point in New York, I don't know if I would have, and gotten through it, I don't know if I would have this sort of appreciation for conversations like this now, because, you know, and having them be so open and honest, because you've just really hit the nail on the head. Like, it's almost should be like a warning when people are considering a move to New York, or if they're here already and they are feeling overwhelmed, like, that's natural, because you're in this city that is excessive, that is, you know, over the top in every possible way, and it's so easy to sort of get lost in it. So resources like Solace House, resources like the Emerald Isle Immigration Centre, who also provide free counselling. I did an episode with Katie Boyle, a comedian, before, and she talked about a healthcare counselling service here that's more affordable. I'll remember the name and put it in the show notes. But there's, you know, there's the cost of living here as well can get you down, like, because it's only going up. Like, I've noticed, I'm sure you have too, over the last few months, like, it costs a lot of money to be here. If you're not making a lot of money, life can be hard. So, you know, New York is really advertised as the American dream, but like, it is such a battle at times. So being kind of aware of how you're feeling and putting giving it context, I think, is so important. Like, I just remember, you know, around like that period 4 or 5 years ago, I was really unhappy. I wasn't making good choices. You know, I was always walking around like, why me? Like, why am I so useless? Like, why am I not reaching my potential? Why?
you know, and it was like what you said right at the start of the episode is like, there's all these warning signs that I just wasn't even like looking at. I was just like dodging under them as I walked down the street, being like, nope. So I think, you know, there's so much people can learn from the variety and the sort of holistic approach that you take with Real Talks, and they can do that through your podcast or by, you know, bringing you into their work or their sports team. I know you're going to definitely be busy now for the next few months with New York. How's that commitment going so far?
Yeah, it's been great. Like, I suppose before I get to that, I would just say one just to add to what you've just said, because I think it's important. Of like, it's always easy to join the dots looking back. Like, I know that's a cliche, and see, I've done that, and I could have saw this. So totally get all that. But one thing is, my own work, particularly say with sports teams, for example, like there's like very simple kind of like philosophy mantra. How I work is we prepare. So like, okay, what do we need to do? Like, what's our plan? How are we going to do that? We perform, like we go and do it. But then we reflect, like, how did we do? What worked? What didn't? And like in a sporting sense, that's pretty easy to do. Like, you're surprised how often it's not done.
Yeah.
But even at a personal level, think of it in your life. We're all like, so like, just say, for example, because I would still do this, right? Monday morning, prepare my to-do list for the week ahead. No bother, right? There's 20 things for the week, so I might break up into 4 things a day or whatever. That's grand. So I go perform, I go do all, I tick. But it's very easy to then not be like, wait, what did I do? What was good? What was like, what actually helped? What was a waste of time? What's the good conversation I haven't I need to follow up on? So that's just a simple, again, like my brain works like, I like little triangles or circles, but so it's just like prepare, perform, and reflect. That's like when I'm with teams, like I take them through. The more I take them through that cycle, like, because in the middle of that's just like learning, which is like, that's how you get to high performance, because you got to keep learning. Yeah. So that's like that's kind of a side thing, and but it's ultimately it's about reflection. That's what I'm saying. Like, and that can be journaling, that can be in therapy, that can be with a friend, that can, like, you know, that can be just honestly just like thinking, being with your own thoughts. Like, even still do it. I've tried to get better at it. Like, just not jamming the earphones in every time I'm like on the subway, or if I'm walking in a park. It's okay just to like just be with your thoughts and see what like bangs around. Rather, like, listen, I love podcasts. We're talking to podcasts. I would listen to many hours a week.
100%.
Also, music's incredible, but just sometimes just breathe. Like,
it's so funny you say that. I went for a run the other day, and my AirPods were dead, and I just ran for 3 miles without anything, and I came back like a new person, and I had all those crazy thoughts that had been going through my mind, just like ordered, everything was calm, and I was like, we're constantly, especially in a city like New York, we're just getting everything in our face. So that's massive, that reflection piece.
So that's something. And sorry, just to answer your question, not to be one of those cliche J people that like, I'm not going to answer that question. Like, it's been great. Like, it's like I said, I feel very privileged. I'm very lucky that, like, it's weird. Like, grew up playing inter-county football in Cavan. Like, I loved it. I'm so passionate about it. I believe in the game. I believe in the values of the game. Like, I believe in teams. I love all that. So to get to kind of be the leader, to try and build and grow what our program is, and a lot of good work has happened in recent years to like make it better. But also, like, I don't mind saying there's an awful lot more work that needs to happen. Like, players here need more support, need more services. They deserve to be treated as well as the guy in Cavan that's playing, or they deserve to be treated as well as the player in Carlow, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's got a lot better. We have a lot of work to do, but in general, we've done a couple of sessions. Like, we're on the field and we're playing football, and just again, wanted to be a good, energetic, nice place to be. And for me, the best thing you can do in sport is create an environment where people choose to come to, they want to come to. It's not, come on, come play. Like, you build up a thing that, hey, and I've said it to the lads in our meetings, and again, it's not like, your life should be happier, healthier, more successful by you being here, because you're here, you get to work out, you get to sweat on, you get to chat to lads, you get to laugh. So yes, you might be sore in the morning after a heavy session, but you should also be waking up kind of sparked by energy too, in a different way, that then go about your work day, like get into work. So it's a big challenge. It's, you know, we've got game in April for sure, got the game in June for sure. We have to earn the right to play more games, so we're guaranteed 2 games. We have to earn the right for a 3rd game or a 4th game or a 5th game, and there's no magic sauce for that. That's hard work. That's competing with each other. It's also having fun, and then, like, it's just these are all, you know, probably from our panel, we've got from 18 years of age, born and bred here, up to maybe a couple out in the 30s. And it's just like, we're in New York, but like, it's Gaelic football is the thing that brings these people together. Like, which is just like really cool.
It's so cool.
And so the experience has been great. Still early, but really enjoying it and just excited for the season ahead. And I think, like, it's just a very special place. It's a very special thing. It's probably the most, honestly, when you think about it, it's probably the most unique, certainly intercasting manager position. It's one of the most unique positions in the GA, and I feel very grateful to have it. And I'm big on players, what's best for them, empowering them, supporting them, challenging them for sure. Like anyone that works with me knows that I'm a bit of I can get on them, but in general, like, I just want them to be better. And it's like, football is a game, not just for, like, not men's football, if it's hurling, camogie, basketball, like lacrosse, it doesn't matter. Like, these games are designed for players, like, to, compete, but also, like, to have fun. And that's sport. Like, that's, we talk about well-being for an hour, but, like, sport's meant to, as much as possible, add to your well-being. For certainly, there's years in my life it's been very detrimental through, mainly my fault, but, like, I want sport to be a good thing, and it should be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they're in really good hands with you, Alan. And, I think what's really important and special about New York GAA is exactly that. It's this very unique group of people that are almost transient. Some of them have been here for a long time. Some of them are new to New York, and it's this very rare bond of, like, our culture.
You'll do well to find a more diverse dressing room, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, particularly, obviously with GA, like, obviously there's other sports stuff, but from a GA perspective, I'd say you do well.
Yeah. Well, it's an exciting time, and as you say, it's a managerial position that is very unique. And with the success of last year with Johnny McGeaney and like the pride it brought to New York and to people in Ireland who once visited New York, like, it was such a moment. And I think I always, like, when people at home ask me about New York GAA, and, like, it was the ladies Gaelic Football Association here was 30 years last year, 30 years since it was founded, and how it's grown as well with so many teams underage. It's just been phenomenal. And how it's I truly believe has probably, kept more people here in New York than, anything else. Like, is when you get plugged into that community. But I think what I just want to say is, especially about the setup with the senior football team, is a lot of it comes from goodwill and big leaders in the GAA community in terms of, like, the players and their families and their friends, because there isn't an awful lot, like, in terms of facilities, and that's something that's been worked on. And so I think it's often might be seen as, like, oh, New York GAA, like, up in, like, in lights, you know what I mean, in Times Square. But really and truly, it's a bunch of lads and women and families and communities spread out over so many boroughs that really put in the effort to make facilities and make time and make a community out of it. And I think that sometimes that, that might not be obvious in terms of how one game on TV once a year might depict it to be.
No, and I would add to that, like, I think, look, say the men's football team ultimately is, like, the flagship New York team, so it's, like, the top of the New York J pyramid. But, like, just to add to your point, like, it's a very big, wide pyramid that, like, so many people provide, I suppose, give of their time for sure, make a big impact. Like, there's so many characters that we say, just the I'm obviously, look, I'm coaching the men's senior team, but, like, there's multiple players there that are there because of hours that people have spent coaching out in, if it's Shannon Gales up in Rockland, in St. Barnabas, like, with the, like, Celtics, there's loads of them. Like, we've also got kids there at the minute, straight up, like, just American kids who are, on soccer scholarships in college, they're on lacrosse scholarship, like, so they're just, like, they're athletes, but also they're choosing to want to play Gaelic football. And, like, it's just, like, it's because of that, like, there's heritage there, there's culture there. I said, like, the success from the team last year, getting that victory was massive. It's not just an accident, lots of work was done. There's lots of work to do.
Of course.
It will happen. Even, like, you go up there now, like, it was up there, like, last night, like, yes, there's a shell of a building there, it's happening. I think, like, what I would say is there's so many in life, you could make up 100 excuses not to do anything. You can come up with 100 excuses of why something didn't work, but also you can come up with solutions and what you can control and what you're going to do to try your best.
Yeah.
And, like, as a particular, on to say, look, on the player side, buy-in energy has been great, and also from the county board, definitely it's been positive. It's been
good.
They're excited. They want to improve. I think they don't, like, none of us would say we're where we need to be, but certainly not going to get there if you don't keep at it. Like, you know, and it's all changes, baby steps. Anyone that tries to rip it up and fix it overnight, that's how like breakdowns happen or people give up. Like, it's just it's baby steps. Yeah. And like that's how change always works. Yeah. Like, it just is. Like, and it is. Change is happening. Things are better now here than they've ever been. I said to you, like, just the diversity of the players, people that want to play. And I said the community around it, the clubs, you're here this summer and stuff. Like, it's just cool. Like I said, my partner, like, she's American, like, her friends have come to games and stuff, and they're like, this is mad. Like, this is cool. Like, you know, and it is cool. It is. And it's like, and that's just straight up. So no, I just think just the thing I want to say that again, just to repeat, is just that, like, just how special the GA is in New York. It's just a really weird thing. Like, that we're all very lucky to have. I often sometimes think, what if I just had been a kid from France that arrived in New York, or what if I was a kid from whatever, like Colombia, like, and again, I don't get me wrong, I know, like, all these nationalities have their own communities, I'm sure, and their own groups and their own supports, but I just think we're very lucky with what we have. So and I just, like, you can do your deep dive on culture and why, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but and I said, for us as a New York team, player-wise, if we can give that space for people to try go a level up and can be higher, great. But then also, we also know we're representing that wider community that you've talked about, and, like, we give them a day out or to come and experience, and we know what we're representing. It's like, we want to do it well and do it with pride, and that's certainly our plan for the year. Like, amazing. Well, good luck. And Alan, where can people find you? Yeah, you can go on to realtalks.ie. There's a little bit of service work happening, a bit of up-tuning on at the moment, but also then just, you can do Instagram, Twitter, AOM. The cat is my stupid tagline I came up with when I was a kid, or not as a kid, or as a teenager, but it hasn't. So it's just AOM, the cat. Or you can just read it. It's alan@realtalks.ie. If anyone wants to email me directly, they can. With said to you, podcast, always looking for sponsors, as you know, and then come to me first. We'll split the sponsorship. Just do it for both of us. That's fair. That's literally fair. We'll do a deal. Love it. And then if anyone wants to book me as a well-being speaker, or if you're particularly sports coaches, teams are interested in kind of learning more about that work, always happy to chat or jump on a call or email, whatever, so they can reach out, no problem. Brilliant. Alan, thanks a million. Thank you. Enjoyed this chat. Thanks.